Hello and welcome back to Adobe Live. It's good to see you again. Thank you for tuning in. Please let us know where you're tuning in from. We're here today. I'm Sarah Stewart and we got Megan Sornson with us here today. And we're going to be talking about UX UI design, specifically about some of the stuff that Megan has been working on that is very inclusive to World Interaction Design Day, which has been going on all day. So I hope you've been tuning in all day. We've had some amazing guests, amazing topics covered. Please check it all out. I was on earlier today with Liz and Shannon, had a lot of fun learning from them. We just spoke to George, who gave us a lot of good insight on starting a company for good. So again, tune into everything. But without further ado, let's jump into what we're doing today. And maybe we can start with Megan giving a little bit of a quick introduction as to who she is and what she's working on. So Megan.
Yeah, so like Sarah said, my name is Megan Sornson. I am originally from Kansas, which I'm very fond of. And I went to school out in Kansas, studied design there, and moved into, I was always into the social good space and cared about why I was doing what I was doing on various levels. And after school, went to do an internship with Invisible Children, which comes with a lot of controversy in and of itself as a company, but wanted to see what my where do passion projects and things that you personally really care about and are invested in the work that you do, and how do those two things collide together? I took a semester in college and right after and lived in Nairobi, Kenya for 5 months, and began to see where some of those things collided for myself. I left after Invisible Children and went to work for a company called 50 and 50 in San Diego. And what we did was we worked on nonprofit websites and social good for-profit, so a lot of it was WordPress design. And when I was there, I did a site for a company called BioLite, and they were a camp stove that instead of using propane, you use actual sticks to start the fire. So they emitted, it was clean emissions. It emitted a fan that then had you could charge off of it out of an electric port. So it was this cool project for in their sales. They were able to shift and actually give money to people who were using camp stoves in their home and were having like a lot of emissions that were poor for themselves and for their families. And so there was a social good aspect to what they were doing. But as soon as we had released to the site, we actually saw a dip in their sales, which may not be too uncommon, but as a company, we weren't doing the proper research behind what we were doing in order to understand how to design well. So at that point, I switched to a company called Digital Telepathy, also in San Diego, to learn not only, I had learned what I felt formerly how to design something beautiful, but I wanted to learn how to design something effective.
Yeah.
And while at Digital Telepathy, Kountable was one of my clients, and that's who I work for now. So Kountable is, it can be a kind of a detailed project that I'm going to use a case study to kind of explain what we do, to give an example. So
yeah, I just want to talk about how you've always done stuff that is really meaningful in your career. And so as a designer, you've specifically search for these projects where you feel like you're making an impact and doing something good for people. And so a lot of people on stream are saying things like today's theme is how to be a good person and a designer. I can't help but agree and feel like you're right in line with everything else we've been doing today. And I also just want to say hi to everyone. So we've got people like Talon, Suzanne, Eric, Vasile, Kathleen's back in here. It's good to see you all. Please ask questions as we go. I know you're going to have a lot of questions for Megan today. She has a lot to share. She's prepared a really great presentation of Kountable and about the work that she's been doing. So this is going to be a really great example of a really well thought out design research process and design execution process. So process is, I think, going to be really strong here, and ask your process questions if you have them. Is there anything else I'm missing about what you want to cover today?
It's perfect.
Great. So today we're going to cover a lot of this intro as to what is Kountable. We're going to talk about process and constraints and what the goals are for this project. And then Megan's actually going to work on executing a real product for Kountable for the next couple days. Tomorrow we're going to be focusing a lot on executing on that design. And day 3 we're going to be looking at some new XD features and also talking about an offline mode, which you'll understand why in a little bit.
Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
All right.
So To tell you a little bit about Kountable, I'm going to tell you about an individual who uses Kountable. So this gentleman's name is Fabrice, and he started a company in 2002 called Africa Medical Supplier in Kigali, Rwanda. So what Fabrice and AMS do are they provide, as their name implies, medical goods to companies in Rwanda. So some of how he finds that business is he is going on to procurement sites, is what they call it, but you're basically finding a purchase order from what we call an end customer. So in this case, he had found a contract with the Rwandan Ministry of Health, and they were currently in the country at the time of this project. They had 2 NICU units in all of the country of Rwanda. And so the Rwandan Ministry of Health put out a contract in order to provide over 20 and spread those out across the country. So their goal was to decrease infant mortality rates by 40% that year. Wow. So they put out this contract, and Fabrice applied for it. He went online and he said, "Here's these." He knows the medical supply industry, so he went and he found incubators and saw how much those would cost him, and then he knew what it would cost for him to do the training and actual installation of these units. So together he put all of that into a contract, or into a bid, and he bid on this contract and he ended up winning it, which is awesome.
I'm glad he did. He has a good purpose for winning it. So.
Yeah. So in a traditional trade, we call it a 3-party trade deal. And in a traditional trade, you have the supplier, who in this case was the maker of the incubators. You have the end customer, who is the Rwandan Ministry of Health, and you have the provider or the local supplier of those goods, which in this case was Fabrice. So in a normal project, Fabrice would need to go to a bank, get money. So in, these incubators the total would be somewhere around $300,000. So for him, he needs to go to a bank, try to get the money for these goods, and then purchase them, supply them, and not until the end of this project is he actually paid. So goods when you pay, cash when you deliver. But in a system where there's not necessarily a credit score, and I don't know about you, but I don't own a home, so I don't own collateral that's worth $300,000, so somebody may not trust me for a loan. If I don't have a credit score and I don't have the money myself, where would they get that money in the case that this project were to default? So what we do as a part of Kountable is we say, instead, let's partner together with these SMEs, and instead of giving people money that they then have to figure out how to work this deal, we pay for the goods themselves. We purchase the goods on their behalf.
Wow.
The supplier, we then say, we're going to do better than what a bank can do for you. We're not just going to give you this money and say good luck with it. We're also going to help you with the logistics of getting those goods from point A to point B. So we say, Fabrice, you're a phenomenal medical supply expert. We want you to be good at what you are doing, and we will help you with the logistics of getting those things. You shouldn't have to worry about logistics, the shipment. That's not what you need to be expert at. Be good at what you're doing, and we'll help you with the rest. So
I think that's a really good case study to illustrate what Kountable does and how it helps people. In chat, do you guys understand the concept behind this? It's really a company that helps support people with these really meaningful projects and support them financially to be able to pursue them. Do you have questions about this format? I think it's really interesting to learn about the business side here. When you want to help people, but you want to be able to help them fund being able to purchase design or purchase the products they need to be successful. Cool. Noelle says it makes sense. Voodoo Val says it's epic. I agree. Yeah, thank you all again for tuning in. Talon's in the room. Talon is actually one of the he is lead designer for XD, which is really cool. So we'll be talking about the new features on day 3, Talon, and I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for working on those. Great, yeah. And maybe, do you want to give a sneak peek as to what you're going to be working on when it comes to designs with this kind of work that you're presenting?
Yeah, so just to give you some impact photos of some of the work that we've been able to do. So provide those incubators. Fabrice has gone on to do 12 deals with us now, and has to some extent made malaria obsolete in the city of Kigali, which is pretty incredible.
That is amazing.
By the goods that he's provided. We've created hospitals, and like I said, we currently have an office in Rwanda and in Kenya. And so I don't know that will always be the case of the projects that we do, but because of the markets that we're currently in, a lot of those projects have some pretty incredible social impact, which is awesome to be a participant in. So some of how that gets executed then is we have a mobile and a web application.
Cool.
That these entrepreneurs are submitting. They're obviously registering themselves in their business. They're submitting projects. Those projects are getting funded and ordered and fulfilled. And then delivery and a final payment at the end.
And you designed all of this, right? Because you were the only designer at Kountable for a long time.
Yeah, so Kountable, I'm really great. But like I said, they were a client of mine at the agency we were at, and they valued design early in their process, which is pretty incredible for a lot of more finance or trade companies. I don't think that's typically the case. So I feel really grateful to be a part of that and to try and set a good foundation for what they're working on.
Yeah, this is really cool.
So right now the project the app itself is mostly a project management system, and what we're going to create today is a fictitious project where we actually are able to purchase those goods in app. So if Fabrice had this contract, he could get online, search for all of the goods that maybe someday Kountable will be able to put on their
Online market?
Yes, thank you. And
No
then fulfill those projects from there.
That's very cool.
Yeah. So some constraints that we have to think about as a part of Kountable is 80% of our users are on Android devices, and a lot of them are on older versions of these devices. So right now we're designing for operating systems all the way back to 4.4.4, which currently it's version 9. So
that's a big gap.
Yeah, it's a really broad gap.
And these are really important constraints to know as a designer, because if you just design for the ideal, you're going to miss out on your real market and audience with what you're trying to make. So
absolutely,
this is a good project for that.
Because of that, we don't really know the quality of some of the screens that users are on, and so we also want to make sure that we are making sure that we're covering color contrast. So looking at is the text on top of certain colors, is it legible on all of our interfaces? And then another is load time. So if you look at the difference between load time, I just looked this up. So if you find it to be false, forgive me. But I looked it up online, and currently in Kigali load time is 2.3, and in the US it's 18.75. So it's a drastic difference of just trying to make sure that we aren't doing any heavy lifting on animations, that we're not having a ton of illustrations in app, that anytime we're asking somebody to submit information or documents, that we're really paying special attention to that. And then we also have to pay attention to our user demographic. So a lot of our entrepreneurs are older, and they have definitely, I mean, even my mom hasn't grown up with a phone, but she's grown up with a lot more technology than probably some of our users have. And so making sure that we are paying attention to keeping things really simple and behaviors that these users already know, but also creating animations and sort of affirmation in our interactions of when things have been complete or are done.
Yeah, I think these are really good to go over.
So in a typical process, I would start with research, but we don't have that this time. So some of the questions I might ask would be, how do you typically as a user fulfill contracts, or are there a certain number of suppliers you're working with? How frequently do you cross sectors? So in this case, Fabrice is a medical supply expert. Does he ever do something completely different? So we're just going to assume we know the answers to some of those questions.
Yeah, I think it's good to think of the process, even if you can't fulfill the complete design process, as long as you're keeping it in mind and you know what you should be doing and you know what questions you should be asking. At least that's better than omitting it completely.
Yeah. I love to do some good comparative analysis, and especially of larger applications. I will never be able to, at least I hope someday we are able to, but right now Amazon will forever be able to do a lot more research on best practices than what I could at Kountable. And so if I can glean some of the insights, patterns that they have discovered, then I want to at least acknowledge other applications. So looking at Amazon's checkout and categorization of goods, I think Amazon's a good example as well, because the variation of photos is really broad, and products. So you see, whenever I'm shopping on Amazon, I'm always going and I'm looking for something specific. I don't often just peruse or browse Amazon. So I love that they have the initial just search at the top with some features of the day. If you want to shop by category, you can do so. And there's often on a lot of these applications that I'm looking at several layers of categorization. So they have this primary, which then goes to secondary, to tertiary. When I finally clicked on juicer, then there's still yet another category I can click on. And then there's even 322 results there.
Wow, I'm learning a lot about juicers right now. Lots of different categories.
So then you can even still filter off of those. Once you click into the product itself, you've obviously got details about that product. You have dimensions, you have reviews, you have all sorts of things there. When you're adding things to your cart, you have confirmation. You're able to click directly to that cart, and then you obviously have the listing of those goods. So just paying attention to behaviors, paying attention to structure of things as well.
Yeah, we have a good question from Raphael for you. Do you always do competitive analysis for each project?
I wouldn't say for every project, but I do a lot. I think it's worth at least seeing what other people are doing in the market and whether or not you can up-level that experience, or if there are, again, things that you should glean from that. Specifically, I think I'm pretty new to designing for Android, to be honest. I think a lot of the clients that I had at the agency formerly were a lot of iOS applications or web applications. So even for behaviors that are specific to an Android device, I definitely want to look at how other people are orienting those things.
Yeah, that's a great question, Raphael. Feel free to ask other questions as we're going along. It's good to see people talking in chat too about their different processes and what they work on. People are talking about Sensei too, which is Adobe's version of artificial intelligence, and how that can help with some of these searches too in the future. It's true.
Absolutely. Another one I wanted to look at was Nike, because I think everything they do is beautiful. So Amazon's functional, Nike's beautiful. Can we meet somewhere in the middle? I love the way that they do various categorizations. They kind of truncate it. So they have this top is their primary, then secondary, then tertiary opens up once you were to click on like the shoes section. So it kind of puts it all in one location versus on Amazon, or what we might look at later is Target. They have, you're clicking 10 times before you finally get to the products. They list those, and they do a nice job with a fab, so you could click on the fab and open up those filters at any point.
Floating action button for those wondering.
Floating action button.
Fab.
Such a better name, Fab.
Yeah, I like it. And Eric says Nike's always beautiful. Yeah, they're a good, company to look at.
Again, confirmation that something's been added, and then seeing the actual store. And we can breeze through this one quickly, but I at least wanted to show Target. But they have so many layers of filtering something before you finally get to your list of goods, to your filters, same with a Fab button here, detail, and shop. So the other thing I took some time to look at was a medical supply company, to at least see how do they begin to categorize products. So you can see here doing by medical specialty, equipment type, brands, medical room. So there's a lot of, it's not the same where you could just say, I want to shop for clothes. Yeah. So you have to look at how are people starting to organize some of that information. And then I began to ideate. So now that we have sort of an idea of how we would want to structure, how's a store or a checkout generally structured, then looking at our specific, again, for this example, we're just gonna use medical supplies, so the case of Febreze and these incubators. And so we kind of have an idea that we're gonna need a product listing page with several categorizations, potentially, filters, product details, a cart, and then checkout. But we also need to know our specific user is one that isn't going to be purchasing these goods, because Kountable purchases them for them. So what we need to do is create an invoice rather than a cart checkout. And then send that invoice to a specific project. So if I have a project listing, it's one that I've managed, it's one I'm submitting, then I also need to create that invoice as a part of the submission of a project. So being able to associate this particular invoice or cart checkout process to a project.
Cool, it's nice to write out all the different pieces of functionality you need in the application to know that you're covering everything you need to make it work properly for all the needs you need.
Yeah.
All the needs you need.
Needs you need. So what I would do then is sketches. And so I took a stab at these beforehand, so we're not spending the time watching me try to fumble with drawing.
Sketching's fun though.
It is.
And you used a wonderful product to capture all of these.
So I love using Adobe Capture, specifically when I was on client projects. I love doing that because it's easy to quickly vectorize what you're drawing and add them up onto screens in a way that looks better than what my chicken scratches will look like, and has perfect contrast across the board. It's always a black and white image. So
yeah, it's a very powerful tool, and it helps a lot with I would say whiteboarding, but for sketching things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was doing this on a plane, so it works anyway.
Perfect. On a plane, just taking pictures.
So I started with some users or some job stories. So I could define what are the features. We know what features to some extent we want, but then starting to list what are the needs that these users have per page that we can start to define and make sure that we're accommodating for each of those features as we're working on these pages. So typically that's if you have multiple users, you would put in as a project manager or as a shopper, but in this case we just have the user of this application. So as a user, I want to, and some of the things that I wanted to annotate from what we looked at in an analysis was being able to search specifically for anything at any point. I would imagine Fabrice came into the app and didn't need to wonder like, what category should I search by? Because he already knew exactly what he wanted.
Yep.
So being able to search for something specific, being able to search per industry. So this is something that I think we can somewhat have set because we know that Fabrice is always working with medical supplies. So we don't need to worry about him needing to go look at construction, right? So if we can somewhat have that set for him. And then subcategories, and I took after what Nike had done here of having these top categories and then these secondary categories and then even the tertiary.
Yamini asked the question about if you do low fidelity and high fidelity wireframing before you freeze the UX. This to me is very low fidelity, and I love low fidelity. I think it's a great way to start. But do you normally do low fidelity and then go into high fidelity, or?
Yeah, I often like to think of design as like painting layers or even like masonry, like you're putting layers of bricks on top of things. So first we're doing this research and we're trying to lay the foundation of understanding, and then we begin to ideate on top of that, and then as I'm working, I'm setting loose definitions of at least what I want to be present, but how that's oriented or where something is might change as I'm designing and thinking about it from a user standpoint. I always say one of the best qualities of any designer is somebody who can be empathetic, and I think part of that comes from a background of caring about people, but I think as a designer, if you can't think of how your user is using your product, then you're not probably creating the best product for them.
Yeah, I think empathy is something that most designers try to have when they're working on a product, and it's something that resonates really strongly with me, which is why I like all the topics that have happened here today, and why I think that these are really good projects to work on, because you can't help but empathize with the people who are trying to do this good in the world and want to support them in their endeavors.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll also want the product listing page. So once you've picked your specific category, gotten to that category, you want to be able to favorite things. You'll want to see basic high-level information, be able to filter those. Clicking into the product detail, we'll want to see those reviews. We'll want to see photos of those, descriptions. And then lastly, the checkout experience. So shipping will be a big part of this. I think Fabrice's incubators came from somewhere in Europe, and so what's the cost is going to be a huge portion of his project. Is that freight, is that aircraft, and what does that cost? And then lastly, submitting that and then choosing which project to associate that project or that invoice to.
So we've got a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot that Megan's covered. There's a lot that she's going to want to design. And so after doing all those sketches, you've brought them into XD. And so this is where the layering process starts, right? And it looks like you have some notes too. So maybe you want to talk a bit about how you organize your file and how you move forward from here.
Yeah, so I went ahead and created the artboards because we already know what pages we're going to need, and I want to be able to save some time for us.
Nice.
And then I also went into just to kind of grab, so we don't have to spend some time watching me fumble online, to look at what are those categories, subcategories, and tertiary categories that we will need to be designing around. So,
gotcha, those are nice to have handy.
Yeah. I don't want to have to, some of these, medical terms are hard to type, so I didn't want to have to type those in front of everyone.
And now XD has spell check, which is also very useful for those medical terms. That's a new feature.
Me especially. Terrible at typing. So I went ahead and titled all of the pages as well, and we'll just get going.
Yeah, Ivan has a question about whether or not you have a general user flow or a specific type of user. Megan went through the use case and the specific story for this design earlier today in the stream, so you can go back and check that out if you'd like.
Sweet. So one thing to note, I think, because like a point that I brought up earlier, we are trying to design really familiar interactions that users know. And so one of those things that I'm pulling from heavily, at least at this time in our design, is is material design. So our users already know this. We have a lot of conversations about trust within what we're doing. So a lot of our users, like I said, aren't necessarily as familiar. If you've ever seen Better, where you can remortgage your home all online. So I have a coworker who recently did that, which is amazing. But even for me, if I'm, refinancing with hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's terrifying to do online.
Yeah.
And especially if you didn't grow up with the internet, then that's especially scary. And so we're trying to really build trust. And one of the ways that we want to do that, especially for our users who aren't maybe as
tech
savvy, we want to make sure that we're creating those behaviors that they're familiar with. So sometimes I'm pulling, even when you're in XD, if you can get UI kits here, and you can find Google's material kit and have it ready and pulled up.
Yeah, there are a lot
straight from it.
Of templates and XD files available online. If you search for XD resources, there are a bunch on Adobe's website. There are wireframes, there are dashboards, and there's material design and other operating system designs that you can pull from, which are really handy to get started.
Yeah, and I should make note as well that we have a design system that we're beginning to establish as a company.
Awesome, in the assets panel.
Yes, so I've already pulled those up in our assets panel. So I've added those all in, which makes our design process a bit faster as well. So our colors are established, our type is established, and then we even have some preset, whether that's icons or illustrations. So hopefully we'll be able to fly a little bit faster today.
Yeah, and for anyone who's not familiar with the assets panel, it's a really great way to set up your project so you have the reusable components you need and the colors and type that you want to use across your application or website or product, whatever it may be.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. I'm going to pull here from material, and I should note if you're taking a symbol from one file to another file, it automatically adds those into your library. So you can just pull those again if you would want to, or if you don't want those, you can click and delete those out of there. So
nice.
We're definitely going to steal from what already exists this search bar. Maybe. And add that into our design in a similar way to, let's go back over here, to what Target had and what Amazon had, where I can quickly search for what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so you can grab these elements. You don't need to use them as is. You can modify them, recreate them as your own symbols in your project, which is what Megan is doing right here. And hi, Ahmed. Hi, Afroja. Hi, Vuduval. Good to see you again. Vuduval was on here recently hosting Adobe Live with Shauna. That was a great stream. You can go check that out in the history replays of Adobe Live.
So we're going to add search here. We're gonna, so that someone like Fabrice, if they already know what goods they're looking for, they could go ahead and add those in. I am going to create so if for some reason he would want to switch and have a different high level category, so if that's medical supplies, or if he would want to switch and have something different, we at least don't want to hide the option from him. So we're going to leave that exposed here with some sort of a drop down. So the nice thing about XD is that everything, I think in other programs I always have to, especially if I switch between programs, I'm fumbling to try and remember what shortcut is what am I pulling up. But the nice thing about XD is when I'm using shortcuts, I can just use L for line, or E for ellipse, or R for rectangle, so that makes it easier to remember.
Shortcuts make sense.
Yeah.
And Megan hasn't been using XD all that long, and so I would consider her still a new user, and she's been picking it up really easily. She's able to work in it very efficiently. And if you don't have XD yet and you want to try it out, we have a free version available, so you should go check that out and play around with it. We also have an XD challenge going on that's 2 weeks long. You can tune into those streams as well, and you can participate. We have a challenge every day that you can either choose to do, or if you do a number of them by the end of the 2-week challenge deadline, you'll be entered into the competition. It's a great way to get to know the community and to give each other feedback on your designs. There's also a Slack channel that you can join. So yeah, check out the Adobe Daily Challenge, Adobe XD Daily Challenge.
It's nice.
Yeah, it is
Free
nice.
Adobe.
I like the community of Adobe. I think we're all very nice. I see a lot of the same people on chat, which is really lovely. So thank you again for tuning in. I'm happy to be here. It's nice to meet people like Megan who are doing wonderful, amazing things in this community.
So I'll often just, in a very unbeautiful way, place things in, at least so that organizationally, I know that things are where I might want them to be. And then I can begin to, after that, understand visually how should they look. So as long as I know, or begin to understand functionally that something's going to work how I want it to work, then I can later make sure it looks how I want it to look.
It's like painting layers, right?
Absolutely. So this is where I might say, if we go to the site that I was referencing earlier here, where we might have these first groupings of filters. So I might say medical specialty, equipment type, and obviously we would have to give a bit more thought to this as far as if this was construction. How do these filters change based on what industry we're talking about?
Yeah, that's a lot of content. Would you normally do a different design for each version of it, or would you have a list that you just have as reference for people building out the application after you're done designing?
I think in an ideal world, it would be the same structure no matter which industry. I mean, if you are that user who is switching between industries, you don't want to be lost or confused as you're switching between those.
Yeah, true.
And then we would give that list. We use Jira a lot as a project management system, and so being able to use that to communicate what those variances would be between the two.
Gotcha.
So another nice thing about XD is this repeater grid.
Repeat grid. It's like a
Yes.
magic wand for making things
So
appear.
nice. And then you know that everything's perfectly placed.
Yep.
So we're gonna just add those in here. We're gonna say with a rectangle. And I'm switching poorly between assets and design layers with Command Y, Command Shift Y.
I'm learning
Nice.
shortcuts today.
Yeah. I still get it wrong most of the time, but we'll play with. I also often work on a 4-pixel grid, if that's of value to anyone, but trying to properly space things out and keep it consistent across the board.
Nice. We have a question from Yamini about whether or not you can crop images in Adobe XD. The answer to that is you can mask images in Adobe XD, but if you're looking to do photo manipulation, you should probably be using Photoshop to edit the image the way you want it to be before bringing it into XD for the design. And Munir asks what your favorite way for presenting UI UX projects is when you put it on Behance.
It's a great question. It's like the I keep saying we need a dribble of UX in the world where it's not necessarily all about the most beautiful layout of things. But I think it's different per project. There's certain things you want to feature on one project and things that are important on one that may be less important on another.
Yeah, recently I saw a UX designer on Twitter put her new portfolio website in an Excel document where she just talked about how long it took, what the deliverable was, like what the impact was in terms of analytics, and that was it.
Impressive.
I thought that was really interesting because it should be more about how you're helping the person than the way it looks, I think, sometimes, especially when you're trying to make a meaningful product.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's hard to tell the value of a UX project without a case study to talk about it, right?
Yeah, which is what we went over in the beginning of the stream if you missed that.
So here I have a filter that we're going to work with, and we can hit the repeat grid and
Magic.
magic.
I like to call this Adobe Cadabra. That was coined in one of my streams previously with Alex Banaga. Adobe Cadabra is our magic word we use before we do magic in Adobe
That's
XD.
amazing. One thing I haven't figured out, and maybe you know the answer to this, is if I have a shadow on this whole box, how do I keep that shadow on certain edges?
So you want to keep the shadow on the same element when you're repeating the grid?
So like when I don't have the repeat grid, I have a shadow on all 4 edges. But if I have it, it cuts it off on 2
So what you
of them.
need to do is when you select the repeat grid, you need to expand the barriers of the repeat grid to the left and right side so you can see that shadow. And you can do that by expanding there, and you can see the shadow appear on the right-hand side.
Right.
Maybe Talon can give me some insight onto how to fix the left and top corners because
that way.
they are cut by the repeat grid. Usually I would just ungroup them personally because I don't know the right way of doing it. But if you, increase the barriers around the repeat grid, it will show the shadows.
Tricks. Awesome. Cool.
Happy to help.
So the other thing that I'm going to look at is it takes up a ton of space. There's a ton of visual collateral taken up by this header, and so as I'm scrolling, there are a lot of subcategories, and I want to make sure that we're also able to see a lot as we're working. So one thing that I would potentially do is if the user were to scroll on this page, that we would lose some of these things unless the user scrolls back up. If that makes sense.
Yep, minimize the amount of sticky header.
So if I change a symbol, it's going to change everywhere. So I'm going to go ahead and
Ungroup it?
ungroup this one, maybe.
Yeah, the way I would do it is you can go into the top header too. If you go to Object, when you have it selected, ungroup symbol. I don't know why it wasn't showing up in the right click menu.
Yeah. There we go. And we're going to expand our search. So I didn't show you guys interactions, but I was taking a look at the interactions of the applications that we were talking about earlier. And one of the things that they do is they move from this narrowed in search, and it expands out and takes up that whole screen space when scrolling.
Nice, for more surface area for the finger tap.
Yeah. So
Nice, moving elements
also
around.
going to add in the cart and the heart. So if in the case that you had, I mean, we all use this, at least I use lists in Amazon a ton. So if I wanted to save something, it wasn't relevant necessarily to the project I'm currently working on, but I know that it may be relevant later. I would want to be able to save that.
Jason says sometimes when he watches these streams, he keeps the sound down and makes up his own conversation as it goes.
What are we saying?
That's creative. You can come up with your own answer to these questions if you'd like. Hopefully we're being insightful for people who are trying to learn XD though. Also, if you participate in chat, you have a chance to win today, and the winning prize today is a lovely hardcover notebook from moo.com. I personally use Moo for all my business cards because they make amazing quality products. And so just by asking us questions or saying hello or Adobe Kountable would be wonderful in chat, you have the chance to win that today. And we're going to be giving that away to 2 lucky winners during this stream alone. So please participate, say hi, let us know where you're tuning in from, or give us feedback on the design if you'd like to participate in that way. And now we're actually going to be announcing the first winner of this lovely prize.
Kountable.
Maybe in a second. We'll see if it works. All right, we're having some technical difficulties. Any minute now, this video should pop up and then we'll be good to go. But until then, you have an opportunity. So say hi, spam chat, keep it going. Until we get going, you're gonna be able to win. So say wow, say hi. It's good to see you all. So if you were to win this notebook, what would you use it for? Me personally, I like to use my notebook for writing notes for when I'm doing Adobe live streaming, but I also like to draw some doodles and do some wireframes. What would you use it for? Would you use it to do your low fidelity sketches for you to scan with Adobe Capture? Eric does sketches. Ashton would write down dreams and ideas. Roxanne would write down ideas. Dana would take notes at Adobe Max. I'll be at Adobe Max too. I'm looking forward to seeing you all if you're going to be there. Miriam would draw and do some writing. Gracia would do some sketches. What would you use it for, Megan?
Probably sketches or a lot of to-do lists. If I don't write it down,
Yes.
It doesn't get done.
I love writing to-do lists and rewriting to-do lists.
And writing things you did so that it can be.
And congratulations to Gracia. You are the winner of the lovely notebook. So congratulations. And I know you mentioned what you're going to do with it, sketches. So you better be using this for your sketches and sharing it with us. Come back on Adobe Live and share your sketches with us. That'd be awesome. Congratulations.
Do you have the notebook? What's it look like?
I don't have the notebook. Maybe we can grab a copy of it and see it, but Moo is the lovely sponsor of that, and so they might be getting it directly from Moo.
Nice.
Which would be really cool. Again, Moo is really great. Their products are amazing. I'm very happy with their business cards, so you should definitely check them out. They do a lot of free samples, so you can get a sample package and see what's in it. I think they also have sales like every other week too. They are always giving me a good deal on what I'm buying, so.
Nice.
Yeah, congratulations. And keep participating because we'll have another lucky winner in just a little bit. So while we've been doing this, you've been working away. You've got some stuff up on here. So what have you completed?
So we've got our category of products. We've got our secondary category of how things are organized. We have the, once we've clicked into specialties, we know there's clinical supplies, there's diagnostic equipment, etc. And then similar to how we saw in what Nike does, we're going to, once you've clicked on one of these categories, it would open up and you'd see those subcategories underneath of it. So right now we have a couple of those listed.
Nice.
So next we will, if we were to click into one of these, in this case it would be infant incubators, we will next design out what that product listing will look like.
I'm excited.
Can't wait for incubators.
Yeah, I don't know what they look like, so I'm intrigued. What kind of details would be important for the user? What is the most important piece of information on it? Would it be the image? Would it be the price?
Yeah, I think definitely image and price always matter. You want to know what you're getting and if it's the right thing, and obviously how much it is important. Mm-hmm. We are also going to list out, I think customer reviews are really important.
Yes.
Is this something that works?
And that was what we saw in our competitive analysis, right? We saw a lot of reviews, we saw imagery, we saw prices, so
right.
We know that all that's important.
We also would probably want to have some sort of shipping information at this point as well.
Yeah, you talked about some of these shipping from Europe, right? So that would be a factor on why, or I guess the price of why someone would buy one of these products?
Yeah, so it'll be important for how much, and time, duration. So if something's coming by ship versus by plane, then that would make a big difference. And a lot of these projects, we are beginning to talk about the behavior of time as money. And so if I can get something done quicker, then that means that Kountable has less money out per project at a time, and you'll get greater returns.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you are, one, meeting the deadlines of a contract as a project manager in this case, but you're also going to want to make sure that if you're able to, you want to save a dime, as we all do.
Yep, saving money is great.
Bargain shoppers.
Bargain shopping, so you can spend money on more things. Yeah. More good things.
Profitable business.
Yep. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for tuning in. Yamini, keep asking your great questions. You've had a lot of good ones so far. Adobe Cadabra, I'm glad people are catching on.
What would you say your design process is?
I think my design process is very similar to yours. It definitely depends project to project. If I were working on a similar project to you, I would probably follow your design process to a T, especially since you're able to tap into the network and get to speak with people directly. I think that's really important. One of my best feelings of being a designer is actually going on site to do ethnographic site research, to speak with people and to observe them, just to see what the problems are in person and to know what impact my designs will actually have on their lives. That's really cool stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, people are still talking about what they'd use a notebook for. So illustrations, wireframes, doodles, note-taking, all that's very relevant. I like having notebooks, and I feel like I go through a lot of them. Do you go through a lot, Megan?
You know, anymore, I feel like with a whiteboard, I don't as much as I used to, but
I love whiteboards.
there's nothing as good as pen and paper.
Yep, that's true.
I took a course in college that...
Adobe Cadabra.
Adobe Creative, I forgot.
Nice.
I took a course in college that was all about bookmaking. So I've made my own journals a few times, which is pretty fun as well.
Nice. So yeah, she created one design for one of the product listings and just Adobe Cadabra'd it. And now we have full content for the page. We have that symbol of the fab icon, the floating action button, and you have a design put together. It's so quick and easy.
It's also nice if I copy a symbol from one page and paste it over to the next, it pastes in the exact spot. So one thing with Android to keep in mind is there is this navigation system that Android always uses, and so making sure that that is accommodated in your designs as well.
Yeah. Monier is saying Adobe Expecto Patronum, also relevant. And Raphael's asking about how to observe and any tips for observation. Have you done a lot of ethnographic site research as well?
Yeah, not as detailed as what it sounds like some of what you've done. So I'd actually love to hear that as well. But
yeah, so I was working on manufacturing and distribution software, and so specifically the product I was working on at the time was time tracking. And so people would have to clock in and clock out at a terminal in a factory setting. And so it was really interesting to see people line up at a certain time because they wanted to clock in as quickly as possible to get working, because it was all about time management and making sure they were on the product line as much as possible when they were assigned to it. And so we were trying to create a more efficient way for them to clock in so that it wouldn't be a line and it wouldn't be a delayed process, and so that time management could be properly taken into account with these big projects that they were working on and these big product lines. So it's really useful to be in the factory all dressed up in the bunny suit is what they call it, with the blue and everything, and be in the shoes of the people having to clock in every day.
So you became an employee, sort of?
I kind of became an employee to understand the problem, yeah. And we were there with our GoPros that we wore and recorded everything so we could use that later for reference. I think it's just really useful to do that kind of thing if you can.
Yeah, I mean, talk about empathy.
Yeah.
You're like really learning what
you're in their shoes, yep.
We did, we re-released our Android application in March and had gone to Rwanda and Kenya to actually do some testing with our users on that application, but
Very
definitely
cool.
wasn't watching them in the same way that it sounds like you were. We had a lot of questions. We'd come prepared to ask people to use the prototype that we had created of the new application to see if they were navigating correctly in what we had created, but to actually do what people are doing is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's a good opportunity. I think most designers should try it at least once. We got another question from Yamini. Thank you, Yamini. What kind of process do you do once you're given a brief for any new project? So Megan's kind of going through this as she's putting this together, but maybe you can do a high-level overview of your whole process.
Yeah, so we're often ideating or we're having even users, I mean, as you're using an application or if you're using XD, you're probably thinking like, oh, this would be cool or this would be great. So we're getting all kinds of ideas coming through, and we evaluate those ideas as a company. And then once they're on my plate, I'm doing a lot of a similar process as what I'm doing now of researching, talking to users, and trying to come up with new ways that we can execute those in our application.
Nice.
What about you?
Again, I think my process is pretty similar. I like starting with sketches. I like doing research and understanding the problem before jumping into designs. And then I like creating an appropriate brand for what I'm solving for. So when it's appropriate to do cute illustrations, that's always fun. When it's more appropriate to do technical manuals,
Yeah.
I can even find that fun. So really, again, I think it's about the kind of impact the stuff I'm working on has that gets me excited.
Yeah.
Monir asks what your favorite designers are that you get inspiration from.
It's a good question. I think different probably for UX than other things, but I love Bethany Heck's work. If you've seen her stuff at
we're
all,
friends
her
with her. We had lunch with her.
Yeah?
Yeah.
She's her detail and type are just gorgeous.
She's a really cool person too. Bethany Heck is now the director of design at Medium. So definitely check out her work. She has amazing type work. And she's a really cool person. She likes anime. We talked about anime when we had breakfast together.
Following her stuff, she seems to like shoes as well.
Oh yeah?
Random.
Cool, we didn't have a
Nike
conversation
shoes.
about shoes, but I'm sure that's true.
That's a weird fact to know about somebody. I sound creepy.
I think a lot of designers are into shoes, and it makes a lot of sense because they are very stylistic. Kevin's in the stream. Hey, Kevin. Kevin was here earlier today. If you didn't catch him, I highly recommend going back and looking at his stuff. He's a really cool person and really fun. So thanks for being here, Kevin.
So we might be filtering a project by various means. We'll want to sort it by certain things, and then we'll want to, based on type, you might have accessories versus incubators versus monitors, etc.
Sorry?
No.
Monitors versus, I was looking at
laughing?
chat. Yeah, chat is laughing about anime because I brought it up and I'm a nerd, and so people are pointing it out. I apologize.
No, it's amazing. We were talking from a marketing standpoint recently about like how you approach certain culture, like culturally different things. So if we were to ever move into Southeast Asia, really taking inspiration from K-pop, which I was watching a lot of, which also has people talking a lot these days.
K-pop's pretty fun. It's very lively, that's for sure.
The colors.
Yeah, apparently people are crashing through the wall to say hi to anime. Thanks for the support. I'm not alone. Anime is pretty fantastic. Cool. And so how do you choose what type of component to use for things like these filters?
Yeah, so if you had just two things you were picking between, you might have a radio button where you're forcing people to pick one or the other, versus if you want to allow people to select multiple items at once, you would have more of this checkbox. And we've already, like I said, established somewhat of a design system. It's in process right now, but to kind of create barriers around those things. What's the padding on everything? When can I select multiple things versus one? So some of that has thankfully been done for us, so we don't have to spend too much time spinning our wheels on that design over and over again.
It's been proven to work, so that's what the competitive analysis is for.
Yeah. So one nice thing here we can do is we can create a background fill on this particular page, or rather, if we were to start adding in some of our animations here, so we can easily tab between design and prototype. One thing we know is when, I don't actually know, so maybe you can answer this one for me too. I would love to, this is the finished
screen
animation of what this would be. So if I were to scroll up, that this would almost truncate in a sense and become just this.
So I think now we can do timed animations, which is a new XD feature. And so after a user is on that page for a period of time, we can automatically transition them to the next screen.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's a position animation where you'd scroll down the page and it would launch you to a new design.
Cool.
Another way you can get around that is maybe by having a secret button on the page when you want to show the prototype. But I think the timed animation duration is probably it. But I need to play around with this new feature a little bit more before I can accurately describe how it works. And
Great.
So
we can get to some of that later. But one thing that we can do is if we lost our, we're in design. Here we go. We're going to ungroup the symbol, but when we get to prototyping, we're going to be able to click here, and instead of just clicking like in other products where you're clicking just from screen to screen, we can have this as an overlay, which is really nice. So it'll just pop up on top of and dissolve.
Overlays are so helpful in prototypes, I feel. Most prototypes need an overlay of some sort, which is really good that XD has that feature.
So if we were to click there, then we would see that. So what we will need to do is add some sort of a half opacity so that we kind of blur out the content behind it.
Great. And Raphael has another great question. When doing user interviews or research, should he have one thing he's trying to find out or have a discussion guide with different topics and questions?
I mean, for me, I try to keep it as straightforward as possible. I don't want to confuse a user with a lot of, with going too far across the board, but I also think you don't get a lot of opportunities with users. And in the case of Kountable, our user base is still growing, and so those opportunities are even more slim than perhaps some other products. And so I do take the opportunity to talk about multiple topics in one sitting. But some of what that might look like is saying, okay, navigate for me to submit a project. Now navigate to the store and tell me how you would filter for this specific thing. But I probably wouldn't have them do that for the whole app. I would have them do that for one experience at a time.
And that's specifically when you're having a prototype in front of them and asking them questions about the design.
Sorry. Yes. Yeah, if you were doing user research and asking them questions, what would you say?
I guess personally me, when I would go into these ethnographic site research visits, I wouldn't always have a prototype ready to be put in front of the user for them to answer questions about. So my questions would be more generally about how the company is run, what problems they have surrounding the product we're trying to solve for, and what solutions exist today. So I would have a list of questions, probably 1 or 2 pages long, and they would be specific to different roles in the company. But it really depends product to project, how much control you have over what you're building and who your user is. So yeah, I think it's just good to have questions in mind, and then it'll always kind of work its way out organically no matter what. It never works out the way you plan, that's for sure, but it's good to be prepared. Hi, Vasile. Nice to see you.
The one thing I love about the repeat grid as well is if I change it in one place, it
changes everywhere.
Changes everywhere, which is, what was the phrase?
Adobe Cadabra.
Adobe Cadabra.
Yep. I'll say it enough that it's stuck in your head.
Keeps getting better.
Cool. Raphael asked put in a clarifying comment of he means for generative research, not user testing, since he's trying to create a personal project for his portfolio, which is always fun. The never-ending portfolio project.
Yeah. That's back to that portfolio, or how do you display that information, or what's in there. I think showing the research and that you've done that in a portfolio is awesome.
Yeah, it's
really important. Yeah.
Important step. So you've been plugging away here. We've created quite a number of screens while we've been chatting. Yeah, you're just really quick at doing this, I feel like.
Trying to run. Well, it helps. It helps that we have a design system established. So we're not having, again, I think that's one of the, definitely a pro to creating that on any product. If you're creating a product that's going to have a lot of screens and you're working with developers on that, then it's almost like a paint by numbers or a plug and play. And so we can quickly move from those sketches to higher fidelity designs quickly, because we're not having to say, well, what is this filter button going to look like today? Like, it's already established, we already know.
How long did it take you to put together the design system for this application?
Like I said, we're still doing it, and it's taking a lot of time. It's a lot of detail. I keep saying it's a really good way to make me insane in some ways, because I have to look at the exact number of pixels every single time. How far is it from something else, working really hand in hand with we have some phenomenal developers, working hand in hand with them to make sure that it's accommodated on all screen sizes, and so it's a lot of work. I mean, if you look at Material is a super robust design system, and I know it took them, I'm sure, years to develop. So.
They had a couple more designers on board.
Yeah, more than one.
And Raphael asks again, how about if I have nothing to show? I think even if you have nothing to show, showing what you would have done if you'd had the resources available is what I would personally be looking for if I were looking at a portfolio website.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you won't always have everything you want when it comes to resources, time. There are always going to be limitations on projects, but if you can articulate what you would have done or what you tried to propose, that's all you can do, and that's what we're looking for. We just want to make sure that you would do it if you were able to.
Mm-hmm. I think there's always, I mean, depending on what you're creating too, you don't need, if you were creating a test or a project in your own portfolio, there's always, if it's not a very detailed user, like in this case, I need an entrepreneur who's selling medical supplies, right? But
Yep.
if it was something more of a social application, anyone can be your test user there.
True. This incubator screen is looking nice.
Makes you want to buy one?
Kind of
Even though
does.
you don't know
I
what they
have
look
no
like?
need for one, but I kind of want to buy one. That's what design should make you want to do, right? Just buy things you don't need.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, Amazon is very good at that, but
That's true.
I'm buying less and less things on Amazon, trying to support local businesses more and more.
There you go. That's right on par for today's topic.
I know, right? How are people in chat trying to work on making the world a better place? That's a very broad question. Maybe it's too hard to answer, but what small action are you taking every day? Are you saying hi to people maybe? Are you just trying to be nice to people? I'd like to hope that most people are trying to be good to their environment to help support a community. I definitely am. I like helping people wherever I can. Oh, Vasile designs fonts for millions of people. Thank you for doing that. That's really cool.
You know, I saw a company, it's called Homeless Fonts, and they take
Homeless fonts.
people who on a piece of cardboard have written some sort of a message, and they take that and they translate it into a font, and then
Wow.
if you purchase those fonts, that money or contribution goes towards the people who actually wrote the fonts.
That's really cool.
So if you're in the market for some cool handwriting fonts, they have some pretty good ones.
Homeless fonts. Check
Yep.
that out. Eric says he says hi to people here. Thank you, Eric. That does mean a lot. I really do appreciate that. Jordan asks how people are while working at his retail job, which I think is very important. Retail is tough. People can be mean to people in retail.
That is true.
And so if you're polite and nice to people, that's really nice, really thoughtful of you. Roxanne is trying to buy less, make smarter food choices for the environment. Thank you for doing that. I think that's really nice. And Miriam's trying to be helpful to her colleagues. I think it's really nice to bring up the people you work with because you're a stronger team if you're stronger together, and that relationship will only help that. So thank you for doing that, Miriam. That's so nice of you. Voodoo Val, I'm sure you have a great answer. As far as art and design, she tries to do her part by sharing resources, advice, and not hoarding secrets that could lead other designers to success. Thank you. You're advocating for a great design community, and that's what we want from Adobe Live. Voodoo Val is such a key component of this thriving community, so thank you for doing that.
Absolutely.
She also streams, so check out her stream. She's always drawing, doing cool creative stuff, and is a big nerd like me, so we get along.
Can we talk anime?
We haven't talked anime yet. We probably should. Claude says together is better. Claude's also a very awesome designer. Thanks for being part of the community, Claude.
Claude Pichet. Claude and I worked together at Digital Telepathy.
Oh, wow. Okay, small world. That's really cool.
Yeah. He's a great ideator.
We have a lot of really good answers here. Lindsay's saying that she leads a support group for people with rheumatic, I guess, rheumatic diseases. Rheumatic is how you pronounce it though, right? Rheumatic diseases, and sit on a steering committee for a national conference for the same group. Let me know how to pronounce that, Lindsay. I have a medical background and I should know, but I don't. And that's really nice of you to do. Any autoimmune diseases are really tough for people, so it's really nice that you help them. And Miriam eats lunch every day with plastic silverware at work. She used to eat with plastic silverware at work, sorry, and now she brings her own steel washable silverware.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Along with straws.
Yeah, we had an interesting talk about straws actually earlier today. You should check out the stream with Liz and Shannon to hear their take on it. they both identify as disabled, and they are a bit upset about the straw ban because it doesn't help the disabled community who will need straws to be able to eat some types of food or drink some drinks. They also talked about packaged fruits, like peeled oranges, and how they feel bad being butted against the sustainable movement by really needing some of these products to be built in a way that's easy for the disabled community to consume. And so it's an interesting conversation, and I can't do it justice. You should go back and listen to what they had to say about it. It's really interesting stuff, and today's been a really enlightening day.
Yeah, I heard most of theirs. It was really great, and then I had to start walking here.
Yeah, you had an excuse, but you can always go back and watch those streams, right? So I'm gonna go back and watch George's. I heard his was really great. He was right before us, so I think I can learn a thing or two from him.
Absolutely.
There was a question, I missed who it's from, so please say who it was from, but about NDA projects, and how do you show those if you're not able to share them?
In a portfolio, I'm assuming?
Yes, in a portfolio.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot of people password protect them, so,
Okay.
But you've probably worked on, I'm sure, several of those. How have you done it?
To be honest, my website right now is a one-pager where it just has a description of who I am, and I don't show a lot of my work because it was under NDA.
Yeah.
Some of my work is finally becoming public or finishing production, but it is really hard, and especially if you're looking for work, unless people know by word of mouth what you've done, you need to be able to show an example. So I think password protection is a good way of getting around that.
Yep.
Or having a PDF that maybe you only send to people who want to see examples of your work.
Right. Did you get special permission to show those on your site?
I don't show anything on my website.
I mean, if in the case that you were interviewing to show those, would you get special permission to?
Thankfully, I think I haven't had to show too much of my NDA work because I've had other examples of projects I've done on my own, which is nice. It's always good to do side projects if you have NDA work because then you can show that work. And then also knowing where you've worked before, maybe that company has power within the community and people understand that if you work there, you probably are good at what you do. So yeah, there are ways around it, but I know it's tough. And so I think password protecting or the PDF are good routes to go.
Yep.
Lindsay's asking if Behance offers the ability to password protect some items and not others. I don't believe so. That would have to be something you have to do outside of Behance, and Behance would be more so maybe just a cover photo of the project without any details, and then maybe an email link to get more information from you.
So we're going to try and tackle, one thing that I learned that is really fantastic about the prototyping portion of this is you can fix positions when scrolling, which is new to me. So I can set a vertical height if I have a page that has a lot of content, I can select the vertical height to what the rest of the pages would be or a traditional screen height is, and move the content that should be fixed where it is. So in this case, this Android navigation will be at the bottom of the page, and I can fix that position when scrolling. So if I'm viewing this screen, the prototype of this screen, then just the content that should scroll is scrolling.
Yeah, I mean, when this feature came out, it was a game changer. It's really nice to have a header and footer that's sticky. I combined sticky and header. But yeah. A heady. No, a header and footer that's sticky. Yeah, I think the overlay and the sticky elements are probably my favorite XD features so far, but the responsive resize that we'll be going over on either tomorrow or day 3 is also really powerful if you're doing a lot of responsive designs between different screen sizes. Steve Allen is asking about fluid boxes. And so responsive resize, the new XD feature, you should play around with it. And we're going to be covering it if you tune in again tomorrow. I'll have a file where I can show some more concrete examples.
Yeah.
Good night, Daniel. It's 11 p.m. in Germany. Thank you for tuning in today. Hopefully the time difference wasn't too bad.
Do you take on side passion projects towards things that you're particularly care
Yeah.
about, like social good?
Social good I want to get more into, to be honest. I tended to do a lot of side projects based on technologies that I was interested in. And so one project I got to work on was I worked on a project called Turn, where we were trying to create a VR gallery experience for artists.
Nice.
Where they could take pictures of their artwork, create a virtual gallery, and then have anyone join that gallery, and we could basically have a chat room where you could talk to the artist about their work, see the work from anywhere in the world, just via a URL, which was a lot of fun to work on because of the VR aspect and because it was a community-based product where we wanted to bring people together and make art more accessible.
That's amazing.
Thanks, Suzanne. She said it's a very friendly community. I agree.
All right.
And so you're creating a couple different things here. Do you want to talk maybe about what's going on this page?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of all of the content blocks that would be important for a user to have. So if we go back and reference maybe some of the other companies that we were looking at, some of their things right on these detail pages, I would probably, in an ideal world, pull those up on my phone and look at them. But we can start to see what things people are featuring. So that might be the description, and again, paying attention to what actually exists here on this real product page. So we can see it's important to say who the maker is. So I could look at other people or other products that the same maker has. I could see shipment information, descriptions, features, specifications. Potentially related projects might be nice. So if I am the user that we're talking about who's purchasing an incubator, does he actually need other accessories that go with this particular project? And then even customer reviews. Currently there aren't any, but how might we incorporate that here as well?
Nice. I like the icon for shipping information.
Yeah, I worked with an illustrator named Arlie, and I used to work with him formerly. I believe his website's Gnarly Arlie. But he's got some really great style that we've been able to pull in app, which is great.
What great branding, and that's a really cute illustration. When you can have illustration or company or product to help reinforce the brand again, I think it's really powerful.
Yeah, I think especially as it crosses multiple cultures, if you can visually illustrate something at the same time that you communicate, then it may help where there may be language discrepancies.
Bye, Suzanne. See you next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Nighttime.
Yeah, different time zones. Thankfully, I'm on the same time zone as I usually am because I just moved to Asheville, North Carolina, but I was living in San Francisco. And a lot of people that are here at Adobe Live today came from the West Coast, just like you, Megan.
I am from San Diego.
So Megan told me she's not jet lagged. How are you feeling right now?
I'm not too bad.
Awesome.
Ask me later tonight and I'll tell you differently, but.
Yeah, it's been a long day here for Adobe Live. We've had a lot going on. It's been a really fantastic experience for World Interaction Design Day. Again, if you didn't see the earlier streams, I highly recommend it. We did some interviews that were different than our normal sessions, and they were so valuable for me and for anyone, I think, who wants to do good. So tune into those or rewatch those from the replay screen on Adobe Live. And so you just jumped into Photoshop, was it, or Illustrator?
Illustrator. So you tell me, but I don't know that I can create like in Illustrator. They have I can create the shape of a star.
Yeah, I would do the same thing.
Yep. So quickly created that, and obviously vectors translate really easily. So I could just pull that from there to here, and voila.
Nice. Yeah, there's no star creation in XD, so Illustrator is the easiest way to create a vector and then just bring it into the design program. Thanks, Miriam. Miriam lives in Charlotte, not too far away from me.
Nice.
Feel free to message me and DM me on Behance, and we can chat. Maybe I can travel down to Charlotte and meet you. And Claude says font awesome is another alternative. That is another alternative for creating stars. But not if you want to fill them, right? I guess if you wanted to color them in, I guess you still could, because you can just change the color of the whole typeface.
Probably two different icons. Well, yeah, font awesome, right?
Yeah.
I do want to do, I was playing earlier with, like, if we had a half star, we can do, I don't know if you want to see, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a half star, we can do, like, if we had a masking in
Yes.
app. So if I move back to my layers screen.
And this will answer that question earlier about cropping an image. This is how you would do it.
Now I have to remember how I do it.
Yep, you have to group the two elements that you want to mask with. And so you'll have one object on top of the other in your group, and then you will select them both, and then you'll use the action object in the top menu, mask with shape.
There you go.
And then it'll crop the image to the overlapping of those two elements.
So if we wanted to alter it, we could command click the mask and shift that if we wanted to. And then we're going to create a half star. And we can change,
Nice. Oh,
with
that's pretty.
most of these products, we can change how that line or the border is it if it's on the outside, then it looks different than the rest of these, right? Versus if it's on the inside, it's going to match the rest.
Yep, I remember when XD released that as well, the different stroke features. That was really nice.
Yeah.
XD's done a great job of keeping up to date with these updates, and you can always go to user voice where you can vote on the features you'd like to be included in XD and be part of that community, which is really rad. And Talon, who was here in chat earlier, will get those and work on implementing those designs with his team.
Nice.
His fantastic team of designers.
Yeah, some of the best suggestions for product updates come straight from your users. So,
Of course, yeah. It's always great when you can bridge the gap between user and product creators. And so I think user voice is a really great way of doing that for XD.
absolutely.
Miriam asks if there's a user voice for other Adobe products. I think we're in the process of doing more of that, but I don't know if it's available for other products yet. But good point. I think it's a really useful feature, and XD is doing really well because of it.
So the last thing we're going to add here is related projects. I'm just going to pull from the screen, the grid,
Nice.
and shorten it up a bit. So we don't need to see all of them, but maybe 3 or 4, a handful would be nice.
Perfect.
And then we can end that page.
There's a lot going on this page.
Yeah, you want to know all the details of what you're purchasing.
Yeah.
We'll add in more later, but.
You're really going through these screens. How many have we created and how many are left?
I mean, bear in mind we're doing like a layer brick, right? We're not, there's not too much detail here, but we've done our filtering page with what the animation will look like afterwards. We've done the product listing page with filters. We've done now the detail page as well.
Perfect, and we have a couple more left, the cart page.
Yeah, so we want to go through the shopping experience. So we'll want to create, if I were to, oh, we didn't even add in a button. How do I add this to my cart? So we'll want to also add in not only, obviously, the ability to add this to your cart, but the confirmation that that has, in fact, been added. One of the biggest issues that we actually are continuing to figure out is document upload. So if you think about some of these projects have documents with like 70-page contracts that they're having to upload. And so if you have the slow internet speeds that we talked about earlier, that can be difficult to know whether or not those have been have really uploaded or not. And so really over-exaggerating the confirmation of something being completed or done, or in what we may talk about on Thursday, in offline mode. How do you, if I don't currently have internet, how do I confirm later that that has indeed been uploaded?
Yeah, very important to make it obvious and flashy that things are happening to the user.
Yeah.
Hi, Jen. Jen says, hi, Megan, this is amazing.
Thanks, Jen.
And Yamini mentions it's 2 a.m. in India right now. Thank you so much for tuning in so late. I hope you can get some sleep tonight, though. Hope we're not keeping you up. Voodoo Val mentions one of her favorite things about these streams is getting to interact with the people who work on these apps. And they're no longer randoms or robots, but they're family. And I can't help but agree. I've met some really cool people through Adobe Live. I hope all of you have too. Everyone in the chat is so friendly and so nice. You guys really work well to support each other. Thank y'all.
I hear the...
Oh, Gracia says it's 4:20 a.m. in Malaysia. Man, dedication. I'm really happy that you're here, but make sure you get some sleep too.
I heard that North Carolina is already in your vernacular. You said y'all.
Yep, y'all. Y'all is more appropriate for speaking to both genders too, so I'm trying to use it more.
There you go.
But currently I have a Canadian Yankee accent in the South, and so people have a really hard time understanding me.
Interesting.
Yes.
So you're always going to want to make favorites and the cart available no matter what page you're on. So we're going to add those to the top here, and then the ability to go back to the page you were at previously. And then once added to the cart, we're going to also do another screen that will eventually be a timed overlay, which is great.
Awesome.
Where we will have some sort of confirmation here.
Some message that says, "Yay, you did it!"
Yeah.
Yep, and we'll be showcasing that new XD feature to help make this a reality in the prototype on day 3. So stick around. We've covered a lot today. We did an intro, we talked about Kountable, the company you're working for, and what this product is being built for, process constraints being an important part of the process. And so if you didn't catch that earlier, definitely rewind, go watch that, maybe when the stream is over, or maybe when all the streams are over. We got a couple more people after us that you should definitely tune into for World Interaction Design Day.
What's still to come today?
Yeah, so we have Amelia, Sharon, and Rumiana next, who are working on an app called All Ears. And it's an app where women in hostile work environment scenarios can communicate with one another and support each other. It sounds really cool.
That's awesome.
So that's up next after us, and I highly recommend you tune in to check that out. Or if you can't tune in because it's 4:20 in the morning, then you can definitely rewatch these streams tomorrow.
Always available online, right?
Yep, definitely always available online.
So we'll have some confirmation.
Osama says they know the app. It was in Creative Jam. I'm not sure if it was, but it sounds really cool. It's the first I've heard of it, and I'm definitely going to be tuning in to learn more. I look at the chatters to answer questions, and I look back at Megan, and she's completed another screen. This is so quick and so amazing to see live.
Think with your hands.
Yeah, it's always great when you can multitask on these streams to actually get the work done and talk to people, because sometimes it's hard. You want to answer people's questions, but you want to get some design work done to prove out the ideas and to show how to do it. And Nikki asks if there are any rulers for guides in XD. And so yes, there are. Maybe Megan can show you how to use those in a little bit.
Yeah, one of the things that like I said, I'm later in my process anyways, is I'm really buttoning things up for developers. I'm wanting to make sure that I have things properly spaced, the right padding to everything. So I'll spend a lot of time combing through everything and making sure that's all set. And one thing that I use often is hitting Option, which allows, if I've selected, so say I've selected added, then I'm measuring the distance from what I have selected to anything that I hover over. So in this case, I want to make sure there's a 48 pixel padding across everything, so that not necessarily a ruler, but is definitely measuring the spacing between the things that you're working on.
Yeah, it's very handy to know the measurements and to make sure things are aligned properly. Nice, so we've gotten a lot done with these screens, and now we're moving on to the cart, right?
Yeah, so once this has been added to the cart, you will see, I guess I'm gonna recreate this screen. So I'm gonna select all of these and move them over. And we'll see what does it look like
Once you've added it?
Once we've added it.
Nice.
So we'll see some sort of a E for ellipse, some sort of a notification here that there's content, there are items in my cart.
She said E for ellipse. Again, I'm learning all the shortcuts by just watching Megan.
Didn't know the shortcut for ellipse?
No, I always click all the buttons. I'm a slow worker, I guess.
I always want to say C for circle. So I never use the word ellipse, but
yep. But E for ellipse.
But I have learned.
Is that why you say it out loud, to remember yourself?
Yes,
which
totally.
button to press?
100%.
Nice. And Raphael has another great question for you, Megan.
Yeah.
For button text spaces inside, do you have the same space for top as the left and right side?
Not always. I think it's some of what I try to keep the same padding across the application itself, but that may be varied. So I went ahead, so that this was my way of learning XD before I really got too deep into what I was doing. I was working on translating the designs that I have for the rest of the application here. And there are certain places that smaller buttons are going to make more sense than other spots.
These are really cool to see.
Yeah, so in this case, even if we were looking at the application on a phone, which we'll do for sure more tomorrow as we're animating things, we can kind of play with, does it make sense, and should it have that spacing properly all the way around? Like I said, I'm trying to work off of specific measurements. So for me, that's measurements of 8 pixels. And so I may measure 24 on the sides and 16 on the bottom, or and kind of see what feels right there, I guess.
Let us know what your button spacing preferences are, because we have another chance for a chat and win in just a little bit. And so
there you go.
Just by participating in chat, you have the chance to win a lovely hardcover notebook from moo.com. And Gracie was a wonderful winner earlier today, and she's going to use it for some doodles.
So now we have added an item to our cart, so we could see that. We could do another timed. We can go ahead and at least do the screen. So if we had get started, we're going to do an overlay here to added, and we can do, can we do timed for an overlay?
We should be able to. Trigger at the top, the trigger might, oh, no. I, again, will know more about this after I play around with it a little bit more. We're going to be working on prototyping day 2 and day 3, so we'll get more into these details at that point in time.
But we could do timed to added, and then once added has been shown for a small bit, we could potentially do timed then here to what the resulted page is, right? Or the page with the items in the cart.
Yep.
So we're going to call this Kountable.
It's always good to have clearly labeled artboards too, right?
Yeah, especially I found as I'm working with developers to be able to reference a particular screen. I don't know, maybe you can tell me actually how you do this. So if I'm working on a page, I have product listing, then I might say product detail. Then if something is a subsequent page of that particular detail, I continue on the hashes of deeper and deeper into them.
Everyone's different, right? So how do you label your pages and your sub pages that are variations of a page? I think this is a great question for chat. I personally do this thing where I'll always have a number at the beginning of any artboard, and I'll have that number just continually increase no matter what the screen is showing.
Yeah.
But then I will have the base name, and then I'll do a colon and a different sub-name if it's a sub-part of that same page.
You said number?
I'll start with a number, then I'll have the name of the page like cart, and then if it's a variation on cart, I'll do a more concrete example. Cart is 00. So it'd be 00 cart. And then if I do a variation, it'd be 00 cart colon 1 in cart, something along those lines.
Okay, so the number is like the indicator of the feature?
The number is the number of the artboard no matter what. It'll always just increase. I'll always have 0, 1, 2.
Okay. What happens if you want to insert a page in between 0 and 1?
I have to rename them.
Woo!
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's not the most efficient way to work, but I've always managed it that way. How do you guys do it? Samantha wants a notebook. Yeah, Sam? Sam is a partner, employee here at Adobe Live, and she's fantastic. Wow, apparently Voodoo Val told Mood that they didn't print things out the way she wanted one time, and so they reprinted it for free and overnighted it to her.
That's amazing.
They have great customer service.
They really do. Good products, good thick business cards.
I like having the number at the beginning of the artboard because I like to know how many screens I've created, and I like to feel like there's an order to it in that way. If it's just names, it feels like just a massive artboards to me, but
yes.
It's tough. It's tough to figure out what system works best.
Yeah. The other thing I often do is I'm trying to buy, there's like sections of pages, right? Like this is all for login, so I kind of try to clump those together. Or this is the project detail page, and if I select any of these details to click into, then I kind of have those nested below.
That's what I do too.
Okay.
I have the groupings and then I nest them, and then if it's one flow, usually I'll keep it on the same line.
Yeah.
But if it's a different page, I try to move it down vertically.
Yep.
Organization and design.
It's important.
Fun stuff.
It is important. At the job I had formerly, we used to get part of our annual critique was on our structure of how we organize things.
I think it's important, especially when you give your design to someone else and then you navigate it. It's just common courtesy to keep it clean. It's like someone borrowing your car or something. You want to make sure it's well maintained.
Leave it nicer than you got it.
And set up properly.
Yep.
Maybe a car isn't the best example because you don't want to adjust the mirrors for them without knowing what they need, but you get the idea. Thanks again for everyone tuning in. We've had a really great audience today, and feel free to ask questions. We don't have too much time left with Megan, and I want to make sure we address any questions you might have. We got some emojis going on in chat from Eric. Got a bear and a cow, is that right?
That's an I want a notebook emoji.
Oh, what? I want a
Isn't
notebook?
it if you're chatting and...
Yep, if you chat and win. If that's the winning chat, that'd be hilarious. Just cow emoji. Voodoo Val says she would fail that. My P's, I guess Photoshop documents look like file swamps. You're not really passing off Photoshop designs all that often though, so you're gonna pass there, Voodoo Val.
Yeah. Photoshop, I always had a hard one, back when, you know, you're designing websites and screens in Photoshop, I had such a hard time keeping those files organized.
Yeah, I actually never designed in Photoshop. I designed in Illustrator back in the day.
Yeah?
Yep.
Nice.
It's a weirdo.
I mean, your files were much smaller than the rest of ours.
Yeah.
So if you've ever checked out, I love what Amazon does on their cart experience is they give you this top bar that gives you a subtotal. So once you're get into your cart, you can see what all have I added in here, how much does that cost, and then you see the itemized list below that. So that's what we're creating now, is that itemized list. And then we're gonna have to change the vernacular and hope and see if that makes sense to users as we begin, is instead of saying check out, we're actually creating an invoice, because again, our users aren't actually doing the purchasing of these products.
Gotcha. Munir, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Have a good one. So yeah, we've got the beginnings of the cart page here, and these products are quite pricey. So you want to make sure they know exactly what they've got in there.
Yeah, I don't even know I made it up, but let's see, what is it actually? Yeah, it wasn't too far off.
No, yeah.
I mean, I suppose if instruments to save the life of someone, it should be properly priced.
I feel like the opposite. It should be cheap if it's saving lives.
Well, yes, but it should be the best of the best.
It's true, yes. It costs a lot of money because it's really good equipment. Yeah, Megan's been fantastic to watch today. What's been your favorite part about watching Megan? What have you learned today that you want to share? Lindsay heard me say goodbye and thought it was done. Nope, just saying goodbye to Munir because he had to leave. Sorry for scaring you.
Let's see. One thing that paying attention to as well here is type and what's most important. So if we're looking at maybe the listing page here, we have a photo, so that is accompanying what the title is of this product. And so you probably know, in the case of, again, our user, he's an expert of medical supplies. So if he sees a photo, he probably knows what that is. The title is a helper or indicator of which incubator this is versus that one. So the price of a particular product may be the most important to him in this particular listing, versus once we get into the product, we can change some of those sizes and play with the hierarchy and importance here, versus in the cart, again, what price I'm paying for something is going to be the most important piece. Oh, the other thing I'm realizing we forgot over here is quantity. So again, in the case of Fabrice's project, he was purchasing, if you recall, 20 incubators to fulfill the contract. So we're going to want to indicate how many of something you're adding to your cart.
Man, can anyone do the math of 20 times 3,000? Who gets it first? Whoever breaks out the calculator, probably.
I always thought that's why we went into design, to not do math, but
as
it turns out, there's a lot of math.
There is a lot of math, a lot of pixel counting, a lot of managing different sizes.
So,
Adobe Live 60,000.
There you go.
Thank you. Adobe Live wins. Simple math. Okay, fine. Show offs. I don't do math anymore, so no, it was easy. But if we add in the 3,900 and what were the other numbers?
We
can make it more complicated if you want. I just thought I'd give you an easy question. Oh, Gracia has a question. I want to make sure we get this. Is it okay to use a Parallax website for users 28 to 45 years old? Did scrolling help engage users or annoy them? I'm working on a donation campaign website for rural area students.
That's a great question. I think you could do interviews with some users of that demographic or watch them use the site and see if that, how effective is that with them. I think there's a lot of studies, I don't know if you have a better answer to this, but that a user is more likely to scroll through something than to click on something. So if you're going to weigh more heavily on one side than another, I would rather opt for them to scroll to find some content than to have to click to get to it. So if it's really important for them to see it, making sure that it's in a scrollable distance. But
yeah, I've definitely heard the same research around scrolling to find information. I think it's a little bit complicated when you just mentioned parallax, because is that parallax showing information or is it just a visual aesthetic to appeal to that demographic? And so it depends on your brand, I think, and what you want out of your users' engagement with the website. If you want them to sign up for something or perform an action quickly, then maybe not having more complex interaction on the website to make it simpler for them to get to that goal would make more sense. But again, it's about the research and making sure that what you build is appropriate for who you want to be using the website. Hopefully that answers your question. Adobe Live is giving me some math lessons. Thank you, Adobe Live. Nice. We got our quantity drop down now. We're at 20, which is nice.
Yeah, we may want to say quantity. So if we just put 20, it's not very descriptive.
Yep, we got to give an indication as to what that number means.
So we already have in our, we can display here our assets or our design system in both a listing view or, so we can visually see these a bit better so we know what we're clicking on. But the naming conventions are really nice as well. So whichever way you work better. So I have both a field and a drop down here.
Great, and on that note, we're ready to announce our second winner for the chat and win, so hype it up! Yay! Thank you for tuning in for World Interaction Design Day. We've had a lot of fun with you here today. Thank you all for participating. Got a lot going on in chat right now. Everyone wants to win this lovely hardcover notebook from Moo. I would love to use that hardcover notebook. I've been using my notebook this whole stream, and so I've been taking notes. Don't know what you're going to use it for. Let us know. Are you going to do some doodles, to-do lists? Megan mentioned she loved to-do lists. So.
I do love to-do lists.
Yeah, I think a notebook is a necessity for any designer's toolkit, and so you need this. You need this to be successful. Hopefully you can win it, and if you don't, Moo is a great place to buy these materials. They're very wonderful when it comes to customer service. I use them for all my business cards, but let's get hyped. Let's do this, because Beck Nelson is the winner. Congratulations.
Yay, Beck.
Thank you for participating.
What are you going to do with it?
Yeah, let us know what you're going to do with it. I'm excited to hear. Notebooks are bae. The moment when you cross something off. Roxanne loves to do this too. Congrats, Beck. Thanks again for tuning in. What are you going to use it for? I can't wait to hear. And Talon's back in the house. Hey, Talon. Got lots of people participating. Gracia, who was the previous winner. Congratulations.
Can you win twice?
I think we usually try not to make it so people win twice, so that everyone has an opportunity to win. Yeah, we try to make it so that most people can win something if they tune in. I remember one of the first times I tuned in to Adobe Live was when it used to be on Twitch, actually, and I won a Creative Cloud subscription just by chatting. So that was a really good first experience. Yep.
It's a good benefit.
Yeah. Nice. I don't know if Beck let us know what he or she is gonna use it for, but I'd love to hear. If you're in the house, Beck, let us know. Great. So we've made a lot of progress on this, and so at this point, I really want to ask the crowd, if you have any questions, please think of them now. Ask them while Megan's here. She's a great person to answer questions about process, about UX, about building a design system. So it's a great opportunity. Take advantage. Oh, Beck's back in the house. It is exciting. Congratulations. Voodoo Val remembers the Twitch days. Nice. Those were the days. No, these are the days. Today is the day. It's been a fantastic day for Adobe Live.
It's been great.
It has.
What are some of has anyone attended any of the interaction, like the
inclusive talks? Yeah, let us know what you've been tuning into and what some of your favorite talks were today so far. And we still have more to come, so. So Beck is going to use it for sketches for UI design. Nice. That's a good use of the sketchbook. Yeah, definitely take a picture and let us know what you use it for and share those pictures with us. Join the Slack channel too if you haven't already to participate in the community some more outside of Adobe Live. Let's build up this community.
Yeah, I'm curious, what are some projects people are working on? Do people work on a lot of more social products, or what kind of projects do we like to work on?
What are you working on? Let us know. Or what would you like to work on? Currently, I'm working on a plugin for XD.
Nice.
Which is super exciting.
It's amazing.
Yep, Talon got a demo of it, so hopefully he's trying it out. Talon's also asking how responsive resize is working out. We haven't touched on it too much today because it is a mobile application, but we're gonna try to use it probably tomorrow while we're designing this for an iPad. Yeah. And so we'll need to use that responsive resize tool.
Or if anyone else has used it, please chat us up how it's gone for you.
Yeah, it's a really powerful tool and it's brand new.
Yeah, I was talking about before we jumped on today that we design primarily right now, we optimize for our Android mobile device because that's where we see the predominant number of our users. But one thing that we do is we see how that translates onto tablet sizes. But if there are places that we can optimize for that, we do. So I'm excited to test out that new feature tomorrow and see how it stretches and how it moves and yeah, give some better definition to some of these screens with that.
Nice.
That will be great.
Yeah, and Miriam said she's currently working on a creative brief.
Nice.
Also, thanks, Talon. I'm glad you think my plugin is going to be fire emoji.
Is it an NDA what the plugin is?
I think I can announce it now. I'm working on a Google Sheets plugin for XD, and so I'll have a booth at Max if you're going to be at Max this year, so come say hi. And I think I might even be doing a short talk on it, so
Nice.
it'll be exciting. I'm excited about it. I've been doing some animations and GIFs for the onboarding experience that have been a lot of fun.
What is, can I ask more questions about it? What does that mean?
So yes, what it means is you can put content into a Google Sheet and then you can automatically have that content from the Google Sheet plug into your design.
Got it.
So you can have maybe a list of images or a list of prices and product names. And then just like in your design, you can select those elements and then import that sheet and it'll automatically load everything into your design.
That's amazing. So that would have been, like if I had all these filters and stuff, I could have used it, right?
Yep, you definitely could have.
That's awesome.
Yep, so hopefully it'll be a useful tool for people.
So, for user research for you right here today.
I know, right? It's nice to be designing a tool for designers as a designer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Full circle, right? Yep, another use case Talon mentioned is localization or globalization. So you might have different versions of this design for different languages. And so you can just repeat your artboards, then use different Google Sheets for the different content for different languages. I hope it's a useful tool.
That's awesome.
Yep. Nice. I'm glad people think it's cool. That means I'm building something useful.
Yeah, I'm excited to try it out.
Yeah. Plugins are going to be a game changer for XD. There's a whole designer fund. If you have an idea for a plugin and you want funding, Adobe will give you some money if they approve your idea, and so you can submit it online. And I highly recommend doing it. Even if you're just a designer, if you have an idea, you can get the funding and hire a developer to help you execute. And so take advantage of the opportunity. It's going to be really great when the plugins are available. It's going to make XD just that much more powerful.
Do you source talent from places for things like that?
I'm working with a design and development agency in San Jose called Impeccable. They're really great, and they've been wonderful to work with. And so the founder, Peck, has worked with me, and the developer, Neil. The three of us have kind of been just working away at this plugin for a little while now. It's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
It's not really public yet, so you guys are getting a sneak peek, but look out for it at Max, and you'll find out more information after that date.
When is Max?
Max is next month. It's
Nice.
coming up. It's so soon. I'll be in LA, which will be nice that time of year.
Mm-hmm. That it will. All right.
So we got some shipping options now.
You're gonna have different addresses that you could potentially ship to. So again, in some of the use cases of our users, they may ship to, so say that some of these products come partially made, they may need to ship to their warehouse in order to actually put these things together, or they might ship to the actual end customer. So they may have multiple, I can't type and talk at the same time. They might have multiple addresses in here that they're sending things to.
It's always hard coming up with addresses, like fake addresses or fake names.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yamini's working on an agriculture-based app. Can you talk more about that? That sounds really cool. I don't really know what that means, though. And thank you all again for participating today. We're getting a bit close on time, so please ask any remaining questions you might have for Megan before we wrap up today's stream. And we'll be continuing this again tomorrow and the next day. We'll have 3 days of this. And hopefully you've been tuning in all day for World Interaction Design Day. It's been a fantastic experience for me. I was on earlier with Liz and Shannon. Definitely check out that interview and the other interviews we've done today. We've got an amazing team here in New York City, so it's been a great time for Adobe Live and for everyone participating.
Yeah, it's been awesome to be a part of it.
Yeah. As we're wrapping up, we might need to stop on the design. I know we have a couple more screens left with these wireframes, but we've done a lot today, so maybe you can recap what we've covered today, what we're going to cover tomorrow.
Yeah, so today we talked about what Kountable is, who we are, what we do. We talked a bit about the process that we've gone through with this design. So that's both talking about doing what are our constraints, what would we have done had we had the time, or people available to do research, some analysis of other products that are doing similar things, whether that's the experience itself or the products that they're selling. And then we ideated around that, both in user stories and sketches, and then turning those sketches into some brick by brick, building the design and doing the visual layer to that. So what we've talked about and we'll continue to do next week or tomorrow and over this week is continuing to add those visual layers, prototyping that, and then creating some alternatives for an offline mode for users who may not have the greatest connection.
Yep, we'll also be going over some of the new XD features, including responsive resize and timing for prototyping. So please stick around for the next couple streams. And coming up next, we have Amelia and Sharon with Romania. I need to make sure I pronounce that correctly, but they're working on an app called, I'm just getting a no from Michaels. Rumiana is how you pronounce it, thank you. So the lovely ladies coming up next are going to be talking about All Ears, which sounds like a fantastic application for women in maybe hostile situations where they can communicate with one another. And so I want to learn more about this. I hope you do too. Stick around for that. And thanks again, Megan, for today. I've learned a lot and I'm happy to have you here today.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye. Till next time.